Okay, we're ready to go.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're very welcome.
Welcome this evening to the Committee on Did I mishear you?
Nope.
Madam Clerk, we're good? Okay.
Yes,
Welcome to the Committee on Ordinance regular meeting, Thursday, March 11th, and it is 5:31. I'd like to recognize our city solicitor. Is Lisa Dinneman with us this evening?
I do not.
We need Lisa.
I got it.
Okay, perfect. We have Lisa Dinneman with us, our solicitor. We have our clerks, Sherry Petronio, our steno, Jen Emity, and our director of policy, Sean Bouchard. Please read the roll, please. Call the roll.
Chairwoman Ryan.
Present.
Vice Chairwoman Castillo.
Present.
Councilman Narducci.
Here.
Councilwoman Harris.
Present.
Councilor Miller.
Present.
You have 5 present. You have a quorum.
Great. I'd like to recognize Councilman Espinal is with us tonight. Councilman Kerwin is also with us tonight. I see PJ Fox, Chief of Staff, is also here. Other than that, we're ready to go. I'd like to take a motion to take an item out of order, please. Item 2 needs only to be set up for a public hearing. Before we do that, Madam Clerk, the petition has been received by the clerk's office and it's in proper order and form.
Yes, it is.
Okay, with that, can I have a motion to set up a public hearing? Motion made.
Motion.
Oh, gotta read it. Sorry. Boy, I'm really trying to get through this tonight.
Motion to take item number 2 out of order.
Okay. Thank you. Second by.
Second.
Okay. Motions are made and seconded. What else now, Sherry?
Let her read item number 2, and then we're all set.
Okay, let's read it, and then we'll vote. Please read it. Read item 2.
Can you read it? I didn't get my packet.
Ms. Emity, someone please read item 2.
Petition from John J. Garrahy Jr., Law LLC, 2088 Broad Street, Cranston, Rhode Island, 02905, requesting a zone change for the property located on Assessors Plot 101, Lot 793, 845 Allens Avenue, from C1 to M1.
Okay, great. Motion has been made and seconded.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, please set that up for a public hearing. Okay, item 1. Could Madam Clerk, could you kindly read item 1 into the record?
Sure. An ordinance and amendment of Chapter 8, Courts, Article 2, Housing Court of the Court of Ordinances of the City of Providence by amending Section 8-14, Powers of Housing Court to limit jurisdiction of the Housing Court.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to start this one off by asking our Director of Policy, Sean Bouchard, to explain what is before the committee.
Certainly, Madam Chair. So before you this evening is an ordinance amending the jurisdiction of the Housing Court. In order to do so, I'm just going to give a brief overview of what this entails. So this touches receivership cases, which are specific to the housing area, and so the receivership cases are filed under the state statute, which is Rhode Island General Law 3444, also known as the Abandoned Property Act. It's a state process that provides concurrent jurisdiction, which means that you can file these cases in 2 different locations at the choice of the petitioner. They can either be filed in the Housing Court of Providence, or they could be filed in the Superior Court, along with any other cases there. And so what we have before you this evening is the Housing Court Jurisdiction Ordinance. Our Providence Housing Court is established by ordinance. Specifically, its jurisdiction stems from Section 814 of the Code of Ordinances. And so the proposed alteration that you have before you this evening would limit receivership cases in Housing Court to those that are filed by the City of Providence or the Providence Redevelopment Agency only. What this would do, it would prevent private actors from filing their cases in the Housing Court. It does not prevent them from seeking remedy in Superior Court. It will simply mean that the Housing Court will be hearing in using its time and resources for cases initiated by the City of Providence and allowing private actors to seek their remedy in other areas, specifically Superior Court. With that, I'm happy to answer any specific questions, concerns the committee may have, but that is a brief introduction for the time being.
Great. Let's go right to Councilwoman Kerwin. You are the sponsor of this ordinance. Would you like to fill in any gaps or offer any further explanation?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And thank you, Sean. Sean has just an incredible amount of knowledge on the housing court and so much expertise. And so when this issue was first flagged for me, I called him like panicky. I was like, this cannot be happening. And he was like, so much help. He was so professional, went to the housing court and the housing justice themselves and made sure that this is a really good policy. And so I'm really confident about it. You know, it's a little technical. So basically, just in practice, what this would do is this statute in place as it is in theory, a really good thing. It's kind of trying to clean our neighborhoods up by making sure that if someone isn't taking care of their property, then there's a recourse for someone that is just repeatedly allowing their property to go to disarray. Essentially, there's a recourse for people that live within the vicinity of the property to step in and take it into receivership. And in theory, you know, it's a good idea. If someone is, you know, an absentee landlord in a neighborhood and they actually aren't upkeeping their property, then it's a good idea for the neighbors surrounding the area to be able to, you know, have a vested interest in their neighborhood by taking this property. But unfortunately, what's been happening is people that are not necessarily, you know, in the neighborhood and don't necessarily have the best interests of people that have these homes that are not necessarily in the perfect condition are taking these houses via receivership. And so in my case, in my neighborhood, what we found is that individuals who, you know, maybe had more minor issues with their properties, you know, they couldn't afford to keep up on it as much as others may be able to, but, you know, they still were living in this house or maybe still doing different things to make sure it was in a good shape. They were seeing these scenarios where their houses were just fully being taken from them. And this is really concerning because, like so many of us on this council, I think everyone really cares about affordable housing. And the worst thing to do when we're a body that cares so much about keeping our city affordable is to allow people's homes to be actually taken from them and then taken from them by people that are going to make these apartments that are more expensive than they were before and displace people. So this is something I'm really passionate about. I know the council president is really passionate about it too, because it's been happening in her neighborhood. And Smith Hill and Olneyville are two neighborhoods where the rents just keep rising and people keep having no option but to move out and maybe even move to other places outside of Providence, which is so concerning. So I also want to thank Denise Capaverde. She is my neighbor who flagged this. She's right now facing a scenario where her house could be taken, and she has been just so diligent and doing so much research. She's been so patient, even though she's facing like this super traumatic and really scary thing right now. And so I just want to thank her for bringing this to my attention. It was so ridiculous. Like I said, I was like, I cannot believe this is happening here. But as Sean mentioned, right now, this policy would just make it so, you know, this isn't going to happen in Providence, but individuals that are doing this are going to be able to go to Superior Court, which I want to flag. So isn't going to happen here, could happen elsewhere, which is something I think we have to keep on the forefront of our minds. But yeah, I'll end there and let Denise jump in. And again, just thank you so much to Sean and Denise and to the chairwoman for allowing this to go before the committee. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Before we have testimony from Denise on Councilwoman Kerwin's neighbor, are there any questions from the committee to the sponsor or to Sean? Any questions at this point?
She mentioned, not a
Yes.
question, just a comment.
Councilman.
I want to thank Sean for the conversation we had earlier today about the matter in front of us. So that saved a lot of time for me tonight with the questions that he had already answered. Sean, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Rashad. Anyone else? Okay, Madam Clerk, could you kindly identify, I believe it's Denise Capoverdi, is that correct?
Yep, yes, she's on the
For,
screen.
at the request of Councilwoman Kerwin, we'd like to hear her testimony.
So thank you, and yes, I agree. Thank you to both Kat and Sean.
Could you just provide your name for the record?
Oh, sure, Denise Capoverdi.
Okay, great.
And so, yes, I would just like to thank Sean and Kat, because as soon as I spoke with Kat, she immediately understood the situation, the seriousness of it, and the impact on homeowners. And then, you know, soon after, Sean was just all over it. And it was actually very comforting to know, even though it was such an unknown and still is an unknown for me, it was very comforting to know that they got it, because I had talked to a lot of people who did not get it. So as a homeowner, I can tell you, you get blindsided, you get served, you have so many days to respond and show up in court. And, you know, unless you have an attorney at the ready, you know, which I did not, it's difficult to find one that would take the case on and understand it, because a lot of people are not aware of this, even attorneys. And, you know, they question you whether or not you even know what you're talking about. So it's been an ordeal. But what I have found, because the first time I was served was under the guise of being from an abutter who was within 200 feet, and they were not. So the case was eventually dropped. And then when I did have a hearing, my hearing overlapped with the person before me. And by the way, they're remote, which is even more upsetting. So, you know, I witnessed this, you know, sounded like an older gentleman. He did not speak English, so he had been to court already, but could not, you know, continue because he did not understand. So he had to come back. He did not have an attorney. He had a family member there. He lived in the house. I went by the house, you know. I was shocked. It's so disturbing. I can't even convey to you. So that's, you know, pretty much been my ordeal, which is still pending.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Any
welcome. Thank
questions
you.
for Denise? Any questions? Committee members, council members? Okay. I understand there's someone else that would like to speak. I see him on the screen, Bob Bolden. Madam Clerk, could you kindly invite Mr. Bolden?
Yep, Bob, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, please state your name for the record.
My name is Bob Bolden, represent the Housing Stabilization Initiative.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
Tell us, Mr. Bolden, you wanted to speak before the committee tonight?
I was not aware that I would have an opportunity to, but I am prepared to speak and take any questions.
Okay.
I believe my organization may be the petitioner that this Ms. Capoverdi is speaking of.
Okay.
And I wanted to clear up some things that seem to be a little perhaps.
Is your matter in court right now?
Yes, it is, ma'am.
I don't want to compromise any court hearing, so perhaps you don't want to speak this evening, Mr. Bolden.
Okay.
Could you not speak specifically about whatever matter you have in front of you, and
Absolutely.
just to the merits of the ordinance that's before the committee, please?
Absolutely. So to begin with, we are an organization that was specifically founded to address the housing instability and not just the and as well as the wealth inequality in the city of Providence, Rhode Island. We have a team that has more than 30 years of experience of tackling this. It's one of the industry leaders in this particular field. We've worked everywhere from Los Angeles to Miami to Atlanta to New York and Louisiana. The team that we've put together specifically identifies high risk and high negative value assets within a community We speak to the redevelopment agency ahead of time. We seek an architect, and we work with those owners to first try to stabilize their housing, whether that be what we call the stick or the carrot approach, which is sometimes we call an owner and we say, hey, do you have any plans to rehab this policy and rehab this facility? And we will, if you do, is there any way that we can help you through any of our resources that we bring to bear from all over the world? And if not, then we take them to court. And these are usually properties that are, to my knowledge, are always abandoned, always meet the statute for the receivership, both in Superior Court and in City Court. And to date, we have not had any properties taken away from any particular owners, whether they be personal owners, or in this particular case, she does not live in the neighborhood. She owns that property, but I don't think she actually physically lives there. But we have not taken any properties away. What we have done,
I asked you not to speak, Mr. Bolden, I asked you not to speak about the case that you have.
My apologies. My apologies.
Please restrict your comments and stay on topic.
Yes, ma'am. So to date, we have had over 75% settlements where negative value assets have been recovered, and the owners have retained ownership, and one dismissal through the housing court. Specifically, our organization uses the receivership court because when we use the receivership court, there's programming that we can bring to bear on the record that is supportive services for the human and the community services in the area. And we maintain the 501c3 charitable organization designation by the IRS for this specific task. So,
Mr. Bolden, if I can interrupt you, so
Yes,
you
ma'am.
can use Superior Court. You're not restricted to use just housing court currently, correct? You could use either court at this present time?
Correct.
Okay. It's your preference to use housing court, and why?
One, there is significant less risk. Two, it allows us more time to work with the current owner to come to a mutual resolution. For example,
I thought you said, excuse me, I thought you said that the houses were abandoned.
sometimes they are.
Okay, all right.
So sometimes, but if the owner wants to rehab a piece of property, we don't necessarily have to take it. We will work with that owner so that they can rehab that property, and then we will go away. We have
Okay.
not taken any properties away from anyone. That is not our goal as an organization. We're not private investors that have goals of flipping these properties. And this particular law doesn't actually stop what we're doing because the redevelopment agency is on board with our process.
How long have you been operating with this program in Providence?
Since last year, March.
After the city of Providence introduced its receivership program?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Council members, any questions for Mr. Bolden? Okay, committee members, Councilwoman Kerwin, yes.
Just for the record, and thank you, Madam Chairwoman, I wanted to set straight that Mr. Bolden never did reach out to the Cape Verdes prior to entering a petition for receivership. So I just want to make sure that's on the record, although he isn't able to talk specifically about the case, it's not true.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Bolden before I release him? Any other questions? Okay. Director Bouchard, do you want to make any clarifying points?
I think the only point I would make, if the Providence Redevelopment Agency is on board with any of the activities that Mr. Bolden's agency or any other nonprofit is engaged with, if they would like to use and coordinate and have the Providence Redevelopment Agency take the lead for the petition, that would still be a viable path to use our housing court. But then at that point, they would have the redevelopment agency working hand in hand, and we would have accountability for the city from that direction. So, there is a mechanism still available if they would like to go that route. Otherwise, Superior Court would still be available in the process they're currently doing.
So can I just thank you, Director Bouchard. So my understanding, for the benefit of the committee, the City of Providence receivership program was created to address blighted property and return those properties to productive use, correct? So it appears that other people are using this program. I outside of the structure that was created by the city of Providence, correct? Is that correct? Is that what's happening here? Okay. All right. Any other questions, concerns? I'd like to ask our solicitor, I know that you've worked with the sponsor diligently, as well as our policy director. Do you have any comments that you'd like to share with the committee relative to the lawfulness of this action?
I believe that the ordinance that is before you is lawful. I believe that it is a good policy decision. I believe it was passed for the city of Providence to be able to utilize its court for its own redevelopment purposes and not for private entities or nonprofits or any other entity. It was a way for the municipality to address blighted properties or properties that were in trouble for the benefit of the city.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
What Director Bouchard said.
Thank you. That was my understanding. Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions by committee members at this point? I'd like to thank very much the sponsor for, when I say rushing in and starting to work on this with the solicitor's office at the direction of our director of policy, Sean Bouchard. Good job, good work. And I'd like to entertain a motion at this point. Committee members, is there a motion to approve this as presented?
Motion to approve, Madam Chair.
Second.
Motion to approve made by Councilman Nanducci, seconded by Vice Chair Castillo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion passes. Well done, Councilwoman. Okay, any further business before this committee? Nope. Let's ask, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by my vice chair, seconded by Councilman Narducci. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. We're adjourned.